couldn't survive 1 week in prison, not because they're weak physically, but because they never had to develop discipline. I've come up with some ideas on stuff that I could talk about prison. Obviously, it's where I spent most of my life, so that's where my topics are going to come from. I believe prison teaches you certain things that no school will ever teach you. I mean, you learn to survive with different habits, different senses. You learn to function on adrenaline. You learn to function on fear. You learn to function on a lot of things that I don't think a lot of people, I don't want to say normal lives, but I said people that probably just haven't went to prison or haven't lived that lifestyle go through. It's why I believe that a lot of people that are, doing time or have done time are very powerful people if they just use those habits in a different way. And it's not to put nobody down or disrespect when I say that they wouldn't last a week. Is that we live in different times. We live in different times, and I share personal stuff because it's lived experienced. My son right now is doing some time, and to see my son go through that has been somewhat of a life changer for me. I know my son wouldn't. I shouldn't say it like that. I don't want him to go through what I went through. I don't want to say that he won't make it. He didn't go through what I went through, So he's finding it tough. People don't realize that when you're confined, a lot of things change. You're confined with other criminals, other people's baggage, other people's violence, other people's everything, and you're in there mixed in with everybody. So, and they're predators. A lot of those guys in there are predators. They're constant on the prey in there. So you have to be very vigilant. You have to be careful. There's a lot of things that you have to be, because you see guys get swallowed up in the first 24 hours. That's another thing, that you constantly see violence, and then they expect you to come home and be like a normal citizen after you come home with so much trauma and PTSD. It's crazy. But we have to look at it like, I guess you could say, from a different side of the window. Because, we commit the crime, we go to prison, and most people think that, they go there, they get rehabilitated. I can't even say it. they change, and they change their ways, and they come out being good people. No, 82% of them end up going back. And I think it was first 6 months or something like that. But it's because we get sent to a place that doesn't teach you to survive outside. It teaches you how to survive in there. And guess what? Those skills are powerful in there, but once you get out, they don't serve a purpose out here. Being violent, being vigilant, having spider senses, having eyes in the back of your head, none of that is really useful out here unless you're in law enforcement or in gangs and stuff like that, or living a criminal life. So you have to completely shred that identity and become someone else when you get out, when you get home. And that's the hard part. That's the hard part. But what I tell people is that I had to sit down and kind of figure it out, journal, look at all the programs that I had done, from gang program to the RDAP program to anger management, living program, even sober living, rules, regulations. And at the end of everything, discipline stood at the top of everything, even in the prison life, even in that gang life, even in that dope life, everything. Discipline was like the head of everything. Because when you're in prison, most men work out, every day. They're ready for war. They're getting ready for war, or they're about to go to war. Everybody's getting always ready. It's a stress manager. It's you do a lot of things in prison that make you a beast. Time control, working out, having a purpose, because believe it or not, when you get there and your organization gives you a purpose, that's why you're showing up every day to work out. That's why you're doing what you're doing to, what you have to do. But no one gets you ready to come home. That's the sad fact. This is why, like, I go in there and I spend a lot of time in there because something's got to change. I spent most of my life coming in and out of prison because I spent most of my life thinking being a criminal was normal. Breaking the law, as long as they didn't catch me, was normal. My reactions to a lot of things were emotionally like a child, getting mad, wanting to beat up people because I didn't get my way or they didn't believe what I believed. And it was so many things that I had to technically like figure out. So I tell people the story, when I got out of prison, the very first thing that I had to do was change my identity. When I came home, I was no longer that person. When I came home, I got really into fitness and that became one of my biggest identities. When I started competing, I started my fitness supplement brand and it became my identity. But what I tell people is that when the lights were off and the show was over, then what? Because I was still broken. I still didn't know who I was, me, like Julio. It's why I was so indulged with the fitness life. I was so addicted to it, dieting, doing cardio at 2 in the morning. Like, it was crazy the way I was living. It was insane. Did it get me what I wanted? Yeah, I got picked up as a athlete and I was competing, all that stuff. And it was all cool, I really thought that I had, figured it out, at the gym, all the girls. It was a lifestyle. I wasn't happy. It's funny how men think that when they're making money and they have nice cars and nice stuff and sleeping with different pretty women, they actually believe that they've like made it. I didn't feel like that. I still felt like something was empty. Like I still didn't have an identity. I still didn't know who I was. Because for a long time, I let the streets dictate who I was. I let the prison dictate who I was. And then when I got out, I kind of let my POs and everybody else dictate who I was. And I finally had to take charge of my identity. I finally had to take charge of my life. And I tell people it took 7 years, guys. It took 7 years to unlearn, 30 plus years of habits and stuff like that. I had to take things that I had learned in prison and apply them out here through small stuff. I tell people one of the biggest things that I did as soon as I got out was no matter what, I would get up at the same time and go to bed at the same time. That was my very first habit, getting out. And there was times where it was tough because when I got off of probation, when all that stuff and I started having drinks here and there, it was tough because, I would be hungover. But I promised myself that I was going to keep, getting up and going to sleep. And I kept doing that. And I have to believe that was one of the biggest factors that got me to where I needed to be. I had to go to work no matter what, no matter how I felt, whether I was sad or happy or, bills had to be paid. Child support had to be paid. I had responsibilities. Walking to work for that full year to save up for a car and slowly just build was not easy. Especially when you're fighting yourself. You're fighting your identity. You're fighting your old demons. You're fighting your trauma. You're fighting what everybody else thinks about you. Like, because when I first came home, I was a mess. Like, mentally, I would get mad at stupid stuff. I was all over the place. One day I was this way, one day I was that way. And it's because it's crazy. I tell people all the time, inside prison, I knew who I was. Out here, I didn't. I didn't know who I was out here. Because I actually made a home in prison, like mentally myself. So when I got out, I was technically still in prison. I was just out here, but I would be going crazy because there was no identity for me. There was no roll call. There was no chow line. There was none of the stuff that kept me in structure, that kept me in routine. So like I had to rebuild the whole system again for myself out here, and it took me 7 years. And I'm just like getting started. I tell people, far from perfect. I'm just getting started. From learning to not use profanity all the time to wanting to educate myself, even with my vocabulary. You know, I tell people one of the biggest things I wanted to do when I came home from prison was improve my vocabulary. I wanted to take some English classes, and I wanted to improve it because my whole life it was something that I struggled with. But like, you know, when I work with people that are getting home or that are going in, I always tell them, when you want something, right, you come up with a plan, right? Like, how are you going to achieve it? What are you going to do? And you put it into effect. Because a lot of people complain about things, but they don't do nothing about it. And I tell people that was the one thing about me, is that when I came home in 2017, I said, man, I don't want to go back to prison no more. I don't. I spent most of my life in there. I do not want to go back. What can I do to not go back? And I had to check stuff off. For real, like, and don't get me wrong, I still went back. I still went back, even if it was for 1 or 2 days. I went back twice. And it was some of the hardest lessons I had to teach myself. Learning to say no to certain things. Even friends. But I know that God has a plan, and I know that, you know, we're just getting started. I know that I have a lot of work to do. And the other day I was telling DOC, you know, Department of Corrections here of Arizona, I was thanking them because I said, honestly, 7 years ago when you gave me a chance to come into the prisons to work with the inmates, I was really working on myself, and it's what helped me improve myself so much, because I had this responsibility of taking back in there what I was learning out here. So like I had to get on that HOV lane fast and try to get better as fast as I could to be able to help, you know, the men, the women, the kids, everybody that I work with in there. And it's been a ride. It's been a ride. Like the studio, everything. Tomorrow I fly out to Houston. We're going to be visiting some state prisons over there. I'm going to be there with the Victorious Living team. You know, I love walking into these places, man, because I get to share that hope that I never got to see while I was in there. I get to share that story that I needed to hear when I was in those places. You know, I spent a lot of time politicking on the yard. I spent a lot of time gangbanging, playing handball, smoking weed. Like, I lost a lot of years just hanging out. And that's the problem, is that's why I went right back in, because like I got ready to come back in, if that makes any sense, because I spent my time with that. So it's what I do now. It's what I teach the guys. You know, as soon as you get in there, you start getting ready to become that new person you're gonna become that new identity. That once they open up that gate, that new identity comes on, that cape goes on of the superhero, and you change your life. You leave that old criminal behind, and you change to the new you. But you know, it takes time. It takes time, and it takes a person to really be done with old stuff, because if you're not willing to learn, you're not gonna do it. You're not. And you know, and I tell people it's not to make people feel bad. It's just I know how tough it is, but it's doable. I always explain to people, do you think honestly when I get up at 2:45 in the morning that I want to jump into a cold shower? Like, no. Like today in the morning when I turned it on, I didn't want to jump in there. But I did it because I know what it does for me. I know that I've been doing it for years. I know. That's what I say. I know. So once I got in there, my day just took off. I felt great, got out, journaled, get in my car, went to the gym, did cardio, worked out. And that's how I started my day. But my schedule has improved because it's been 7 years later that I've been working on it. 7 years later, I've improved. The time has never changed. The things that are done have never changed. The only thing that's changed has been the job, what I do for a living now. Because now I have the Biltmore Soundscape Studio. I help people create content. They come in here, they rent the studios. We have 9 different studios. We help manage people's, we specialize in YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook, but we help people with their social media, and that's what we get to do every day now here. We have a team here at the Biltmore. Look at me, I'm back to sales again. But now it's the same schedule, just a different job. But my name's JC. I am Wrong to Strong. You heard it here first. James is on the transformation diet. He will be getting married next year, and he wants to be lean and mean. So please send your messages. Please send your votes. Donate to the cause. My name's JC. I am Wrong to Strong. Súbase la Suburban, because we're about to take a ride.